In the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, where autumn leaves danced through well-kept yards, the Henderson family faced their greatest challenge. 6-month-old Emily, with her bright blue eyes and golden wisps of hair, had been diagnosed with infant paralysis following complications during birth. Her parents, Sarah and James Henderson, had transformed their modest 2-story home into a haven of hope and healing. Though their hearts carried the weight of uncertainty, each day Sarah, a former pediatric nurse, had left her job to provide round-the-clock care for Emily. James worked double shifts at the local hardware store, determined to cover the mounting medical expenses. Despite their exhaustion, they maintained their gentle optimism, finding joy in Emily's sweet smile and the way her eyes followed them around the room. Their next-door neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, had been breeding golden retrievers for over 3 decades. When she heard about Emily's condition, she couldn't shake the feeling that her newest litter's smallest puppy, whom she called Max, might bring some light into the Hendersons' lives. Max was the runt of the litter, but what he lacked in size, he made up for in heart. His warm brown eyes seemed to hold wisdom beyond his weeks, and his gentle nature set him apart from his more boisterous siblings. At first, Sarah and James were hesitant about adding a puppy to their already challenging situation. They had enough on their plate with Emily's therapy sessions, doctor's appointments, and daily care routine. But Mrs. Rodriguez insisted they just meet Max, if only for a few minutes. The day Max first entered the Henderson home, something magical happened. The tiny golden puppy, barely steady on his own paws, took one look at Emily in her specially designed infant chair and padded straight to her. There was no jumping or excited barking, just a gentle approach and a soft nose pressed against Emily's hand. The connection was instant and undeniable. Emily, who rarely showed much response to new stimuli, tracked Max's movements with her eyes and made small cooing sounds. It was the most animated they had seen her in months. That evening, after much discussion, Sarah and James agreed to welcome Max into their family. Mrs. Rodriguez provided the puppy for free, saying only that some matches were meant to be and that Max had clearly found his purpose. Little did they know that this small, furry addition to their family would set in motion a series of events that would change their lives forever. In the months to come, the bond between Emily and her devoted puppy would not only inspire their community but would also lead to what many would later call a miracle. The first few weeks with Max brought subtle changes to the Henderson household. While Sarah maintained Emily's strict schedule of physical therapy and medical routines, Max became an ever-present shadow, watching each movement with remarkable attention. He would lie next to Emily during her floor exercises, his warm body providing comfort during what were often frustrating sessions for the infant. One particularly challenging afternoon in late October, Sarah was struggling to keep Emily engaged in her therapy. The baby was fussy, fighting against the gentle movements her mother tried to guide her through. Max, who had been dozing in his usual spot nearby, suddenly perked up. What happened next would become the first of many extraordinary moments. As Emily began to cry, Max rose and did something unprecedented. He carefully gripped one of Emily's soft toys in his mouth, a small, rainbow-colored rattle, and placed it just beyond her reach. Then, he did something that made Sarah catch her breath. He began pawing gently at Emily's hand, as if encouraging her to move toward the toy. "James!" Sarah called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "James, come quickly." James rushed in from his home office, where he had been catching up on paperwork. What they witnessed together brought tears to their eyes. Emily, who had never shown any voluntary movement below her shoulders, was making small, jerking motions with her right hand toward the rattle. Max continued his gentle encouragement, alternating between touching her hand with his nose and repositioning the toy. "It's like he knows James whispered, not wanting to break the spell of the moment. "He's trying to help her move." Sarah immediately called Dr. Thompson, Emily's neurologist, and described what they had witnessed. The doctor, though cautious in her response, agreed that any voluntary movement, no matter how small, was significant. She scheduled an immediate evaluation for the following morning. That night, something else remarkable occurred. For the first time since bringing Emily home from the hospital, she slept through the night, but only after Max had managed to squeeze himself into a position where he could rest his head near her hand. The puppy seemed to have an innate understanding of exactly what Emily needed. During the evaluation the next day, Dr. Thompson observed Max's interaction with Emily with growing amazement. The puppy appeared to be instinctively replicating some of the motivation techniques used in physical therapy, but in a way that deeply engaged Emily's attention and desire to respond. "In my 30 years of practice," Dr. Thompson admitted, "I've never seen anything quite like this. There's documented evidence of dogs sensing medical conditions and even predicting seizures, but this level of therapeutic instinct in a puppy is extraordinary." She recommended incorporating Max into Emily's therapy sessions, documenting every interaction and response. The hospital's physical therapy department was intrigued enough to request permission to study the unique bond between the puppy and patient. News of Emily and Max's special connection began to spread through the hospital. Other parents of children with similar conditions started asking questions, and the local news caught wind of the story. Initially, Sarah and James were protective of their privacy, but Dr. Thompson suggested that sharing their experience might help other families explore alternative therapeutic approaches. As October turned to November, Max grew bigger, but his gentle nature remained unchanged. He developed an uncanny ability to predict when Emily was about to become frustrated during therapy, intervening with his toy-placing strategy before she could get upset. The hospital documented a measurable increase in Emily's responsive movements, particularly in her right hand and arm. But it was what happened next that would truly astound everyone. One crisp November morning, as Sarah was preparing Emily's breakfast, she heard an unusual commotion from the living room, where she had left Emily safely strapped in her special chair. Max was barking, something he rarely did, with a tone of urgency that made Sarah's heart race. She rushed into the room to find Emily in distress, her face turning red as she struggled with a piece of her teething ring that had somehow broken off. Max was already in action, his front paws on the edge of Emily's chair, using his nose to try to dislodge the piece from her mouth. Sarah quickly performed the infant Heimlich maneuver she had learned in her nursing days, successfully removing the obstruction. As she held Emily close, still shaking from the near disaster, she realized that Max's vigilance had potentially saved her daughter's life. The puppy's intervention had alerted her crucial seconds sooner than she might have otherwise noticed. This incident marked a turning point in the Henderson family's journey. It became clear that Max was more than just a family pet or even a therapy aid. He was Emily's guardian angel, in fur. What they didn't realize was that this event was just the beginning of an even more remarkable chapter in their story. The puppy's intervention had alerted her crucial seconds sooner than she might have otherwise noticed. This incident marked a turning point in the Henderson family's journey. It became clear that Max was more than just a family pet or even a therapy aid. He was Emily's guardian angel, in fur. What they didn't realize was that this event was just the beginning of an even more remarkable chapter in their story. The breakthrough came on a quiet Sunday morning in early December. Sarah was filming one of Emily and Max's therapy sessions for the hospital's research team when she noticed something extraordinary through her camera lens. During their usual play routine, Max had placed Emily's favorite rattle just out of reach, but this time something was different in Emily's response. Instead of the small, jerking movements they had grown accustomed to, Emily's entire arm moved in a smooth, deliberate motion. The movement wasn't just reflexive, it was purposeful. Sarah's hands trembled so much she almost dropped the phone she was recording with. "James," she called out, her voice cracking with emotion. "James, please come here now." As James entered the room, they both watched in awe as Emily, encouraged by Max's gentle nudges, repeated the movement. Max's tail wagged steadily, as if he knew exactly what this moment meant. The puppy had somehow unlocked a pathway in Emily's nervous system that all the conventional therapy hadn't been able to reach. Dr. Thompson arrived within the hour after Sarah sent her the video. The neurologist's examination revealed something remarkable. Emily was showing signs of neural regeneration in areas previously thought to be permanently damaged. The patterns of her brain activity when interacting with Max were significantly different from her baseline readings. "There's something about the combination of emotional connection and physical motivation that Max provides," Dr. Thompson explained, watching as the puppy demonstrated his technique again. "He somehow tapped into neural pathways we couldn't access through traditional therapy." The discovery led to an immediate modification of Emily's treatment plan. The hospital's research team began documenting every interaction between Max and Emily, using sophisticated monitoring equipment to track her neural responses. They observed that Max had instinctively developed a pattern of engagement that perfectly suited Emily's needs. First, he would make eye contact, establishing a connection that triggered positive emotional responses in her brain. Then, he would provide gentle physical contact, usually with his nose or paw, stimulating her tactile senses. Finally, he would present a toy or challenge, motivating her to attempt movement. What amazed the medical team most was how Max seemed to know exactly when to adjust his approach. If Emily showed signs of fatigue, he would automatically shift to a more soothing presence, lying beside her until she was ready to try again. The hospital's pediatric department began developing what they called the Max Protocol, studying ways to incorporate similar animal-assisted therapy techniques into their treatment programs for other paralyzed children. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had bred Max, was consulted about his lineage, revealing that his grandmother had been a certified therapy dog who had worked with special needs children. But perhaps the most profound revelation came from Emily herself. During one of her sessions, while reaching for a toy Max had placed nearby, she made a sound that caused everyone in the room to freeze. Clear as day, she had said, "Maximum." Sarah burst into tears, and James had to sit down, overwhelmed by the moment. Max, showing his usual sensitivity, immediately went to Emily and gently licked her hand, causing her to giggle, another sound they had rarely heard before. Dr. Thompson later explained that the emotional connection Emily had formed with Max had created new neural pathways, not just for movement, but for communication as well. The puppy had somehow become a bridge between Emily and the world around her, opening doors that everyone had feared would remain forever closed. As word of Emily's progress spread, the Hendersons began receiving calls from medical centers across the country, all interested in learning more about this remarkable case of canine-assisted recovery. But for Sarah and James, the most important miracle was the joy they now saw daily in their daughter's eyes, a joy that seemed to grow stronger with each new achievement, always accompanied by the devoted presence of her four-legged guardian angel. With Emily's progress becoming more evident each day, Sarah and James faced a crucial decision. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia had reached out, offering to include Emily in a groundbreaking study, combining traditional therapy with animal-assisted rehabilitation. The program could potentially help countless other children, but it would mean relocating for 6 months. Sarah sat in Emily's nursery one evening, watching as Max performed his now familiar routine of encouraging Emily to reach for toys. The bond between them had grown so strong that Max could anticipate Emily's needs before she showed any signs of distress. The thought of disrupting this delicate balance weighed heavily on her heart. "We can't separate them," James said softly from the doorway, reading his wife's thoughts. "Whatever we decide, they need to stay together." The hospital had already considered this, offering to include Max as an integral part of the study. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had become like a grandmother to Emily, offered to help them find temporary accommodation in Philadelphia that would accept pets. Still, the decision wasn't easy. They would need to leave their support system behind, James would have to take a leave of absence from work, and their savings would be stretched thin. But as they watched Emily giggle while Max gently nudged her hand toward a colorful block, they knew what they had to do. "If there's even a chance this could help other children," Sarah said, "we have to try." "If there's even a chance this could help other children," Sarah said, "we have to try." The consequences of their decision began unfolding immediately. The local community, having followed Emily's story in the newspaper, rallied around them. The hardware store where James worked organized a fundraiser. Mrs. Rodriguez coordinated with her Golden Retriever breeding network to arrange for Max to receive specialized therapy dog training during their stay in Philadelphia. The move itself proved challenging. Emily had never been away from home for more than a day, and the change in environment could potentially set back her progress. During the flight to Philadelphia, Max remained steadfast, keeping his head on Emily's lap throughout the journey, his presence calming her anxiety. Their first week in Philadelphia brought unexpected hurdles. Emily struggled to sleep in the unfamiliar apartment, and her therapy sessions at the hospital were initially less productive than they had been at home. Max, however, proved to be the constant that helped her adjust. He transformed their temporary living space into a familiar sanctuary, maintaining his routines and continuing his gentle encouragement. The research team was fascinated by Max's adaptability. In the clinical setting, he seamlessly integrated into formal therapy sessions, working alongside physical therapists to motivate Emily. His methods were studied and documented, leading to new insights into the potential of animal-assisted therapy. But the most significant consequence of their decision emerged during Emily's third week in Philadelphia. During a session being observed by a panel of neurologists, Emily did something unprecedented. Supported by Max's encouraging presence, she not only reached for a toy but managed to grasp it firmly, a level of motor control they hadn't seen before. The excitement in the therapy room was palpable, but Max remained focused solely on Emily, offering quiet encouragement as she explored this new ability. The moment was captured on video and quickly became part of the hospital's research presentation. As word spread through the medical community, other families began arriving in Philadelphia, some from as far away as Europe, hoping to learn from Emily and Max's story. The Hendersons found themselves at the center of a growing movement, advocating for the integration of animal-assisted therapy in pediatric rehabilitation. However, the increased attention brought its own challenges. Emily's schedule became more demanding as researchers sought to document every aspect of her interaction with Maximum. The puppy's protective instincts kicked in, and he would sometimes position himself between Emily and the medical team if he sensed she was becoming overwhelmed. "He's teaching us as much about emotional intelligence as he is about physical therapy," one of the lead researchers noted. "We're learning to read the subtle cues he picks up on." Their decision had set in motion a chain of events that went far beyond Emily's personal journey. The hospital began developing a training program for therapy dogs, specifically focused on working with paralyzed children. Other hospitals started reaching out, wanting to implement similar programs. Yet, amidst all the medical breakthroughs and research opportunities, the most profound consequence was visible in the quiet moments: Emily's growing confidence, her strengthening bond with Max, and the hope that now filled their daily lives. The puppy, who had started as an uncertain addition to their family, had become the catalyst for transformative change, not just for Emily, but potentially for countless other children facing similar challenges. As Sarah watched Emily fall asleep one night, Max in his usual protective position beside her bed, she knew that, despite the challenges, they had made the right choice. Their decision had opened doors they never knew existed, leading them down a path of hope, discovery, and unexpected miracles. While Emily's story remained at the heart of their journey, another remarkable narrative was unfolding within the halls of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. 7-year-old Marcus, a boy who had been paralyzed in a car accident 2 years earlier, became fascinated by Emily and Max's daily therapy sessions. From his wheelchair in the corridor, he would watch through the observation window, his eyes following every interaction between the puppy and the baby. Marcus's mother, Diana, noticed how her usually withdrawn son would light up whenever Max and Emily were nearby. One afternoon, as the Hendersons were leaving the therapy room, Max suddenly stopped and turned toward Marcus, without any prompting. The puppy gently approached the boy's wheelchair and placed his head on Marcus's lap. "He's never done that before with anyone else," Sarah explained to Diana, watching the interaction with interest. "He usually stays completely focused on Emily." This unexpected connection led to a new dimension in the research program. Dr. Thompson suggested including Marcus in some of Emily's therapy sessions, creating a small peer group environment. While Max maintained his primary bond with Emily, he began incorporating Marcus into their routines, sometimes carrying toys between the two children, creating a bridge of communication and motivation. The change in Marcus was remarkable. Inspired by Emily's progress and encouraged by Max's gentle presence, he began showing renewed interest in his own therapy sessions. The boy, who had given up on trying to move his arms, was now asking his therapists if he could try Emily's way of reaching for toys. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had been following their progress from home, arrived in Philadelphia with another surprise: Max's sister, Luna, who shared his gentle temperament. After careful introduction and training, Luna began working with Marcus, replicating the successful approach her brother had developed with Emily. This development caught the attention of the hospital's psychiatric department. They began studying the psychological impact of peer group therapy combined with animal assistance, particularly noting how the presence of the dogs seemed to reduce anxiety and depression in their young patients. A support group formed organically among the parents of children in the program. They would gather in the hospital's family room, sharing stories, concerns, and celebrations of small victories. Sarah found herself becoming an unofficial mentor to new families entering the program, sharing her experience of how Max had changed their lives. The local news picked up this secondary story, focusing on how one puppy's intuitive connection with a paralyzed baby had sparked a movement that was now helping multiple children. The hospital's pilot program expanded to include 10 more families, each paired with carefully selected therapy dogs. Marcus's progress became intertwined with Emily's story. While Emily continued making strides with her upper body movement, Marcus discovered he could now maintain his grip on objects longer than before. The two children, despite their age difference, developed a special friendship, communicated through smiles, gestures, and their shared connection with Max. Diana and Sarah formed a close bond as well, supporting each other through challenging days and celebrating every small victory. They began working together to create a parent resource guide, sharing their experiences and insights with other families facing similar challenges. This unexpected development of peer support and community building added a rich new dimension to the research program. The medical team observed that the children who participated in group sessions with the dogs often showed more rapid progress than those in individual therapy alone. As winter turned to spring in Philadelphia, the secondary story of Marcus and the growing support community became an integral part of the larger narrative. What had started as one puppy's remarkable connection with one baby had blossomed into a network of hope, healing, and mutual support that no one had anticipated. Diana and Sarah's collaboration led to a pivotal moment: the creation of a comprehensive guidebook for parents and caregivers of children with paralysis. The resource, dubbed Pause and Steps, would offer practical advice, real-life examples, and emotional support. Dr. Thompson, seeing its potential, offered funding to publish the guide in medical journals and distribute it at hospitals around the world. Marcus's mother became a vocal advocate for the research program, testifying before government committees and speaking at conferences. Her dedication inspired others to share their stories, further amplifying the impact of the work. A social media campaign sparked, with #Pause and Steps trending worldwide, raising awareness and sparking conversations about the transformative power of animal-assisted therapy. The research team, now including Marcus and his family, continued to push the boundaries of what they thought was possible. In an effort to understand the mechanisms behind Max's incredible abilities, they conducted brain scans of the puppies, looking for clues about their cognitive and emotional development. These studies revealed something astonishing. The puppies showed unique patterns of neural activity when interacting with their human patients. Their brains seemed to be wired to respond to the emotional states of those around them, allowing them to adjust their behavior to meet the individual needs of each child. As the news of these findings spread, the hospital received calls from researchers and therapists worldwide, eager to learn more about this groundbreaking research. The team was invited to present at major conferences, sharing their insights with experts in the field of animal-assisted therapy. One of the most significant outcomes of this work was the creation of a new breed of therapy dogs, specifically designed to work with children with paralysis. These dogs, bred from Max and his siblings, inherited their remarkable abilities and began working with children in hospitals, schools, and communities around the world. The impact was palpable. Children who had given up hope began to smile, laugh, and engage in activities they thought were impossible. Parents and caregivers reported a reduction in stress and anxiety as they saw their loved ones thrive under the care of these compassionate dogs. As the years passed, Emily's story became a beacon of hope, inspiring countless families and sparking a global movement. The Hendersons, now known as the Puppy Pioneers, continued to work with the research team, sharing their insights and advocating for the power of animal-assisted therapy. Marcus, now a confident young man with a spinal cord injury, stood on stage at a major conference, holding Max's legacy close to his heart. He spoke to a room full of scientists, therapists, and dog handlers, sharing his own story and the impact the program had on his life. "We were given a second chance," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "And it was thanks to Max, a puppy who saw beyond our limitations and showed us the power of love, compassion, and hope." The audience erupted into applause, and the room was filled with tears of joy and gratitude. As Marcus hugged Sarah, now a close friend, Max's legacy was clear: a tapestry of threads, woven together by love, compassion, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals. In the end, it was not just a story about a puppy and his remarkable abilities, but a testament to the transformative power of love, friendship, and the unbreakable bonds between humans and animals.